It's time. I am ready to go. I am ready to go. Let's go. Woo! Whew. Felt good to do that. Haven't done that in a while, but welcome in, everyone. This is 2024. A happy new year to you and yours. This is the No Strings Podcast with Ralph Simon, episode 41. Fourth season, if you will. Fourth season, season 4, episode 1. Each new year is a new season. Been doing a podcast since fall 2021. And in March, almost coming up on 3 years of being debt free. But with all that to the side, the content is here. I'm excited. I've got episodes ready down the pipeline. I couldn't wait. I needed to record this one today and then get ready for the next ones that I'll do. So, welcome on in. As always, this podcast is brought to you thanks in part to Spotify for podcasters. And this podcast is available on all platforms. And I am on the socials at Rel Simon on TikTok, at Kicks on Canvas _artistry on Instagram. And also my YouTube channel at Rel Simon is the username, but you just search No Strings Podcast with Rel Simon and you'll find me. So, with the business out of the way, let us get into episode 41, 80-20. The 80-20 rule, the 80-20 effect. What is this, you may ask? So this particular ratio has remained in my mind. Late November, December, I ran across an article that was in my news feed or my email feed, email newsletter from movement.com. And I'll get into that article in a second. I've definitely quoted them in articles in the past, and I definitely implore you to check them out in their content. But this ratio is in my mind because I'm starting to realize that life isn't perfect. The older you get, you expect one thing to happen and it doesn't happen. You expect your day to go a certain way and it doesn't exactly pan out that way. You expect your partner to be this 100% jewel gem and it doesn't turn out that way. We sometimes set ourselves too high of a bar for expectations, and there's nothing wrong with that. We want perfect. Women want the Cinderella Disney princess story. Men want the ultimate high peak, high mountain, ultimate alpha type of status. But let's dive a little deeper into this concept of 80-20. So per theangelfirm.com, this article highlights the rule and its origin. So let's read the rule as explained by them. The 80-20 rule asserts that a minority of causes, inputs, or efforts usually lead to a majority of the results, outputs, or rewards. The 80-20 split is not hard and fast as to every situation. It's a scientific theory based on empirical data. The real percentages in certain situations can be 99-1 or an equal 50-50. They may not add up to 100. For example, only 2% of search engines hog 96% of the search engine market. Fewer than 10% of drinkers account for over half of liquor sold, and less than 0.25% of mobile gamers are responsible for half of all gaming revenue. That's a portion from theangelfirm.com. And here's another subset or paragraph regarding the origin. So in the year 1897, Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist, observed that 20% of pea pods in his garden produced 80% of the peas. He then applied the same logic to land distribution in Italy and found that 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the population. In 1949, George Zipf, an American economist at Harvard, rediscovered this rule after World War II. Then in 1979, British author Richard Koch wrote the best selling book, The 80/20 Principle. So, some of the examples that they list on the article I will read in just a moment. But, it's just to break down those two paragraphs. Life is all about ratios. You expect 100% of something. You expect something to work 100% of the time. Uh, there will be a 10% chance that something fails. There will be a 5% chance that your team this year makes the NFL playoffs. There will be a 69% chance that your team makes the playoffs. There will be a 85% chance that your son or daughter will pass the SATs. There will be a 50-50 chance that your son and daughter will go to that Ivy League school and be accepted. There's a 60% chance, given your current credentials, that you may be asked to interview and become hired for a particular job. So life is about ratios. Life is about numbers. But this general 80/20 sets a bar, almost a positive bar, because 20% of failure is quite a margin. And if you break that down into a game of chance, that's like a 1 out of 5 chance that something may fail or something may not meet your expectations. But on the flip side, a 4 out of 5 chance, there's a 4 out of 5 chance that it does happen. Now, there is definitely an inverse. And as I get to these next examples, there are some examples of 80/20. There's examples of 20/80. So this article from the angelfirm.com, they listed over 100 examples. I just cherry picked a few on the 80/20 ratio. So, for example, 80% of population, 80% of promotions are given by 20% of bosses. 80% of your success comes from 20% of your ideas. 80% of crimes are committed by 20% of criminals. 80% of stress is caused by 20% of stressors. 80% of the wealth is owned by 20% of the population. 80% of muscle gain is built by 20% of the repetitions. And 80% of projects get completed in the last 20% of the time before a deadline. I know in particular that last one in terms of deadline projects. Have you guys ever had something that's been on the books for a long time, but then the due date is coming and you just rush to finish it? I'm sure we all do that. You may be wanting to make a Sunday dinner and you wait until Sunday afternoon to rush to the store to grab 80% of all your ingredients. And there's only a certain time frame before it hits Sunday dinner so that your family can eat, and you try and rush, right? Now let's take a look at the inverse. Some examples that I pulled from that article. 20% of your wardrobe is worn 80% of the time. 20% of your phone apps get 80% usage. 20% of foods cause 80% of weight gain. 20% of your TV channels are watched 80% of the time. 20% of your thoughts lead to 80% of ideas. 20% of laws are broken 80% of the time. 20% of investment portfolios produce 80% of the gain. Really, in particular, look at all your phone apps. iPhone, I believe Samsung has your usage report for the week and for the month. And I know in particular for me, Safari, YouTube, my banking apps are really the top ones. Even the podcasting app, messaging, of course, app. But and you have all these other apps that you may use once every blue moon. Papa John's or your DoorDash here or there, right? think about your wardrobe. You buy a whole bunch of clothes. Some clothes are probably in your closet right now with the tag still on them. And you usually go through your go-tos, your work staples throughout the week. Then during the weekend, I know for me, I have hoodies and flannel pajamas and joggers. I'm in joggers every weekend. So this list of examples, the origin, the rule, it's good to give yourself a a barometer. And these examples, some of them you can argue that they may be hypothetical, opinionated. I do believe some of these are factual, statistical. We won't get into that now, but or today, but it's here to get you thinking about reward exchange, output versus input, realistic versus fantastical. And I talked about movement.com a second ago. Jay Donovan, who's a writer for movement.com, wrote an article titled Embracing the 80-20 Rule for Lasting Relationships. And I quote, at its core, the 80-20 rule in relationships posits that you might only find about 80% of your desired characteristics in your partner. This isn't a sign of inadequacy, but rather a reflection on the beautiful complexity of human relationships. No single person can embody every trait or fulfill every need of their partner. Acknowledging this is the first step towards a mature and grounded approach to relationships. One of the most significant benefits of the 80-20 rule is its ability to instill realistic expectations. In a world bombarded by the illusions of perfection propagated by media and popular culture, this rule serves as a reminder of the human reality. Seeking a partner who checks every box on your list may lead to a perpetual chase, leaving behind a trail of dissatisfaction. By focusing on a substantial 80% that your partner offers, you cultivate gratitude and appreciation, which are cornerstones of a successful relationship. Now, the Angel Firm article broke down a bunch of different examples and the Pareto principle on its own. This particular article, or what I just read over the past minute and a half or so, this is the article where it sparked my idea to have this, do this episode. And this in particular, in terms of relationships. Me and myself, I'm about 6.5 years, 7 years going on, being single. And, I've had my this, I've had my that. I've, had my matches, I've had my dates, my dinner dates, I've had my excursions, one night stands, whatever you want to call it. Right. And, seeing where I'm going in my path with these episodes, I'm continuing to build my net worth and create this content, share knowledge, continue to grow my own walk. It's starting to be a constant theme. I just had this conversation the other day with one of my friends. We went out for some food, and in terms of how she's doing in LA and how church is going, and just coming together. Very very good friend, knowledgeable, but I know my path. I've got this success and I'm still healthy and able-bodied. And the next step is to reach that plateau of children, kids, build my legacy. To part of that is trying to find that particular one. And granted, people close to me know I do have a type of person, in terms of what I'm looking for. Maybe sometimes my expectations may be a little too high or unrealistic, but I'm learning to see things where they are, where the rubber meets the road. And it's important for me to embrace and try to apply this rule in a lot of aspects of my life, but including at least one of the top three, include the 80-20 rule. Because it's one thing when you see a person, or if I get a match on the apps and they look good, but granted, being with someone for an extended period of time, being married to someone is a commitment, and you're going to have days, you're going to have bad days, 20% of the time spent with them, 80% of the time, right? And, I just, for me, it's trying to train my mind, train myself, look deep down inside as to what a partner can provide for me, what I can provide for a partner, and also take this article into a personal perspective and take it with heart. As she mentioned, in a world bombarded by the illusions of perfection propagated by media and popular culture, this serves as a reminder of the human reality. A lot of these dating apps, some of them are fake. They may be AI generated at this point. A lot of these female pictures is just they out on dinners and dresses and this and that, and I want princess treatment or this, that, right? Um, and obviously, I'm not a guy or I'm not a woman. I'm not a woman. So if I was on the other end, I don't know what guys' profiles look like or this or that. So I can't really speak in that essence, but I'm starting to just see from speaking to people who's genuine. How much of a social media presence do you have? Is it fake? Is it these Instagram captions? Is it all for likes? And it's just getting harder and harder out here to, for one, find someone that ticks 100% of the boxes. But even 80-20. But I'm still confident in myself, and I'm still confident that I will find what I am looking for. So 80-20, two different articles, two different subsets. One just breaking down 80-20 in general with a lot of different uh, examples about life, finance, money, your daily habits, working out, health, crimes, right? 80% of crimes are committed by 20% of criminals. 20% of your thoughts lead to 80% of ideas, right? So some food for thought. I'm going to take a quick pause. And when I get back, I'm going to just ask a bunch of random questions that I typed in my notes, I thought about in the past using these 80-20 numbers, maybe a little bit of the number or the numerical value of 100% thrown in there. So I'll be back in a flash. All right, we are back. Episode 41, No Strings Podcast with Rel Simon, titled 80-20. I was going to title it the 80-20 effect, the 80-20 rule, the 80-20 principle, whatever. I just left it as 80-20. But let's keep rocking and rolling with this theme. And I mentioned before, the quick pause is that I would just ask a bunch of random different questions. And honestly, I have a list here in front of me that I typed up of random questions. Maybe I'll think of some more as I get to the end of my list. But let's try to apply 80-20 in our life. Let's try to ask some random, maybe tough questions. But it's like they say, you take a shot in the dark, you may get a flashbang. Or maybe they don't say that. I mean, I never heard that before, whatever. I don't know, just trying stuff. Whatever, leave me alone. All right, so let me ask, are you brave enough to save 80% of your income and live off the remaining 20%? Lord knows that would be impossible for me. But a lot of people doing this FIRE movement, Coast Fire, Super Fire, whatever, that's what they're doing. Any given week or in a given week, do you work out, eat healthy, just have a healthy mindset 80% or 20% of the time? 80% or 20% of the time? There's 7 days in a week. So are you on a healthy kick 5.5 days out of the week? Give or take? Or are you only on a healthy kick every Sunday or every Wednesday? You make a salad, eat some salmon and some rice, and then you go out to eat and chips and fries the rest of the week. Chips, fries, chicken, burgers, pizza. Do you give 100% in your job, hobby, or sport, pastime, right? Or is the ratio 80-20 with the 20% being when you slack where you only slack 20% of the time and you're bang through 80%, or maybe the effort is only 20 and you slack for 80 in your job, your hobby, your sport. We like to tell people, some people give it 110%. You ask people at my job, that's probably my ratio, just 100%, 110% gas pedal every single day. Work is a blur. For me right now, I would say in terms of my hobbies, I'm giving 80% of my hobbies towards this podcast thing and 20% towards my painting and art. Is something that I've hammered myself on. You can even say 85-15. I mean, I've done a few sip paints recently, but my creative baby right now is in the podcast game and TikTok and YouTube. But granted, it's like riding a bike. I mean, I'm just being honest. I'll get to it. This is the cycle or season where I'm in right now. And this is the cycle or season where you may be in your job, hobby, sport. The next question. Are you 80% debt free with 20% left to go? Do you owe $1,000 on a credit card? And you paid off $800 over these past few months? And maybe you have $200 left because the Christmas season is past and you'll try to get through it around late January, February, right? How much student loans do you have? How much debt do you have in total? It's something about this channel. You should definitely add up all your debts and how much do you owe, right? Maybe at this point right now, look at how much you owe and then see, can I pay off 80% of this debt by the end of the year to leave me with 20%? Then at the end of the year, right, you can ask this question to yourself again. Am I 80% debt free with 20% left to go? Did I pay off 80% of my debt in 2024? And do I only have 20% left to pay in 2025? What about the fellas? Fellas, are you fine with her looking good only 80% of the time with the other 20, meaning that she can kind of lay low with the hoodie and the sweats on, right? When you're going out, dolled up, this and that? Or does she have to be bang, boom, 100%, right? Full face caked up and she's got to be on point all the time. Again, setting these realistic versus unrealistic expectations, right? 80-20. Are you, if you are the religious type, are you in prayer and worship mode 80% of the time with the 20% reserved to be turned up? Now, no doubt we are all saints and sinners. I'm not the most perfect person myself. But honestly, where are you? Where are you in your worship or your peace or your good works or goodwill? It's funny. There was a podcast episode I listened to a long time ago from Joyce Meyer, and there was a quote that she mentioned that for some people, they have, in terms of worship and believing, they have enough of Jesus to stay out of hell, but not enough to walk in victory. Or in other words, being holy only on Sundays and worldly the rest of the week is not the way to live. Let's see if I can get to really an 80-20 mindset for this year as well in terms of that, through prayer and worship. And as I get prepared to go on a trip of a lifetime, hopefully this upcoming trip will be transcendent for me. What about the stress in your life? Is your life 80% stress free with 20% drama, or is it vice versa? Are you 20? You have 20% stress free and then 80% full stress with drama and whatever. And this can be controversial because some people start moving and shaking and itching because they need chaos in their life. Chaos is normal to them, and it's unfortunate for those particular people. What about back in college or high school? Were your grades 80% good and 20% bad back in the day? On your report card, were you getting four A's, a B, and a D, three B's, a C, and an A, three F's, three D's, right? What were you getting back in college and high school? Were you at the top had, top 80%, or were you down in that 20%? What about your gas tank right now? What about your fridge right now? Is your gas tank or fridge 80% full or 20% full right now? Or even your belly. What about your belly? Your stomach? You starving right now? What's up? What's going on? Are you in that situation? Right? Or is it a 75-25 scenario where it's fussed? One of the previous episodes that I did, food, utility, shelter, transportation. Do you have three of those four? Which is 75%, 75-25. Do you have 50-50? Now, this isn't really to, beat up on yourself. These are just questions, random questions being thrown out there where you think about an 80-20 split, right? If your fridge is 80% full, you're doing pretty good. If your gas tank is 80% full, I'm not a driver, but depending on how far you have to travel or where you go, you're good for now until the next time you got to fill up. If your fridge or gas tank is only 20% full, that's just a reminder to tell you that it's time to, let's flip that ratio. Let's do an inverse of that ratio. Let's flip. Let's get things together. Let's get our needs together. Put our wants to the side. Speaking of which, does your budget consist of 80% of needs and 20% of wants? Now this is, or is it the flip? Is it 20% needs and 80% of wants? Now that's a bad ratio to have. Even 80% of needs and 20% of wants. I mean, that's depending on how you frame it. If we're lumping needs as in paying bills and savings, and then you 20% of wants, then cool, right? Because we'll always, you always do like a three-way percentage pie: 50% bills, 30% wants, 20% savings, or 30% savings, 20% wants, however you want to do it. But if you are lumping it as 80% savings and bills and retirement, and then 20% wants, I think that should be ideal. I mean, even if you 70-30, right? Just remember that you're gonna you you can't be out here like buying stuff all the time, spending money on this stuff, disposable items, things that are gonna, shoes, clothes, game systems, all the time. You can splurge here and there, but again, look at that budget and take a 70-30 approach, 80-20 approach, however you want to look at it. So again, does your monthly budget consist of 80% needs and 20% wants, or vice versa, right? Are you brave enough to save 80% of your income and live off the remaining 20? So what about your friend circle? Because friends can be fake. You got 10 to 12 people going on trips to Cabo, and it just creates chaos. And you may live with a few roommates. It was fine the first few months, but you realize that particular person may be a slob or just annoying, or your significant other, you're having growing pains. But specifically with your friend circle, does your friend circle possibly consist of 80% real ones and 20% fakes? You got 5 friends, and one person's always late, always flaky, always rude, doesn't want to put up tips for the bill, may not always be available. Or you may have that one homie, that one girl, and a lot of people, the rest of the people are entourage. They may internally hate you and your best friend's guts, but they still stick around. Again, who's in your friends? Who can you rely on? Have that good ratio. you'll have to trim the fat. Nothing's perfect. You're always going to have that one person or two people that are really slacking. But I say, keep your friends close. Like they say, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. But you shouldn't really be having like enemies like that anyway. So just keep your friends close, and anybody you don't deal with, just put them to the wayside. I forgot what site I got this on, but these are just two more little random stats. But actually, I did mention this one earlier, I think. But did you know that 80% of the world's wealth is owned by only 20% of the entire population? Well, that 20% of the clothes in your closet is worn 80% of the time. Yeah, definitely. Yep, definitely got it from that other article. But when you think about 80% of the world's wealth, only by 20% of the entire population, we know a lot of third world countries or a lot of places with a lot of back roads, they're not advanced, right? USA is technologically advanced. Australia, England, London, Paris, right? Netherlands, Canada. But then you go to some places like, depending on where you go, uh, Saudi Arabia or Pakistan, Lebanon, a lot of countries in Africa, a lot of countries in South America that may not be fully developed. Jamaica has a great tourist scene, but from Montego Bay, for example, as you drive that hour down to your resorts, you see little shanty towns and places like that. And in terms of wealth, with the Maui fires, you got a lot of people who, a lot of millionaires and billionaires who already owned land or portions of land in Maui, and post devastation wanted to pay those people who were devastated and who just lost their properties and their homes. These billionaires offering them a lump sum payout of cash to own that particular land, so that they can rebuild. Hollywood, New York, Billionaires Row, right? You got East Coast, West Coast. A lot of people who live in Miami on near the beach, in these penthouses and these people who live in these $1 million homes. DC, over $1 million, $21 million, $10 million homes. Hollywood, along that coast, right? Silicon Valley, Seattle, San Francisco, and 20% of the entire population, 80% of the world's wealth. And then a lot of people, 20% of the entire population, a lot of people are just regular Joe Blow, like you and me, 5-figure, 6-figure jobs, but just still making it, blue collar workers, minimum wage workers. So through all of this number positing and theorizing, numbers are just very powerful and telling. I think whenever you do a report or a study, you have to have data, fractional data, um, X out of X data, 3 out of 5, 7 out of 20, 80 or 60 out of 100 people surveyed, right? When you watch Family Feud. And again, 4 out of 5 ain't bad. It's definitely better than 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5. 80% is definitely better than 60%. Numbers provide a more concrete set of data. You measure your net worth, assets minus your liabilities, and boom, that's your net worth. That's your net worth. How much do you weigh? It's a number. How much is your rent? It's a number. How many years have you worked at a job? It's a number. 20 years, 5 months. 15 years, 4 months, 3 days. Numbers are just so powerful. And for me, just looking at everything here, what will my 80-20 be this year? I talked about, trying to be in that prayer and worship mode. I'm going to, just really try my best. Try to be 80% stress-free, which I really don't get too stressed. Granted, work is difficult, and sometimes things outside of work can get tricky, but my 80-20, I actually downloaded my transaction history from mint.com. I'm still looking for what do I want to call it? A a budgeting app or software, or like you need a budget or whatever. I used Mint for so long, but Mint recently just shut down as of December 31st of last year, January 1st. So pretty much a few days ago, last week. And they migrated over to Credit Karma, and the features are just not as robust as it was with Mint. And so we'll see if I transition into budgeting a different software. But I love Mint because it broke down what I was spending in a week, different categories, to try and give myself a snapshot of where my money is going. I was able to download all my transactional history before they shut down onto a CSV file or Excel file. It can convert to Google Docs, Google Sheets. But anyway, I was thinking about Amazon. My Amazon purchases last year just so random. I talked about Amazon here in the past a few times, and including Amazon Prime. And it's one thing, I think, 80% of my Amazon purchases throughout my entire lifetime, I guess, would have been completed last year, or definitely an uptick. And part of that is the convenience of having to have a locker down in the lobby of your space. In my previous place, I had an Amazon locker across the street of the Safeway, but it's just so easy with the 2 or 3 day shipping, just getting all types of random stuff, knowing that it'll go into a locker and not having to wait for the mail, like access to a legit mail room, or go to the concierge to pick up the package, where there's a locker, put a code in, put a code in, scan your phone, and boom, there you go. But anyway, because I'm rambling on a little bit, but I think I chose Amazon. It is crazy. I reviewed my Amazon spending for last year, and the total was $1,657.60. That includes Amazon Prime, which is like $140 or something last year, whatever. And I mean, that's quite a lot, and that includes impulse buys. So as I sit here in front of this mic with my fingers crossed, I'll cross my fingers and let's see if I can save 80% of that number and reserve the 20% for Amazon purchases, meaning limit myself to spending only 20% of that number this year. Now, that would mean I would have to stick to spending only $331.52, which would include the Amazon Prime yearly fee, and save $1,326.08. That's tough. That's going to be tough, because even right now I've got a couple things in my Amazon cart that I'm going to need for my upcoming trip, and that's probably going to be about sub $80. So I don't know. I don't know. I think, maybe if I can just do Amazon $500 for the entire year, maybe 600. But that 1326, I'm in my head, I'm going to say, all right, cool. If I can at least put $1,400 in add to my emergency fund, $1,400 more dollars, right? Let's just do 1,400. Let's just do a nice round number. I'd call that a success. Maybe 500 this year on Amazon, 1,400, just to get me in that mindset once again. And again, this would be my emergency fund, still being able to save in my TSP, still allocating money from a Roth IRA, just trying to build up my emergency fund this year and prepare for what else will come towards me as it comes, whatever. All right, so that's all I got for this episode. Again, be kind, rewind. Credit to theangelfirm.com, as I read portions of snippets from their article posted. Again, the article from Jay Donovan from movement.com, embracing the 80-20 rule for lasting relationships. To all my married folks or people in a relationship right now, definitely rewind, embrace the 80-20 rule. Think about your partner before you married and as you're currently in that phase, or your partner before you dated as you're currently dating. And, what are their qualities? What are 80% of the qualities? What are 20% of the faults? But learn to meet them at the road, walk in lockstep, and realize that, life isn't perfect. You have to make it and mold it into some decent and some realistic expectations. 100% is not always achievable. Even if it's not 80-20, do 90-10, whatever you want to do. But definitely appreciate life, appreciate the people that are in your life, but don't set the expectations like super, super high. So yeah, that's all I got. Thank you for listening to this episode. I can't wait to do more episodes this year. I'm excited, getting back on the grind. And that's all I got. At TikTok, on TikTok at Rel Simon, on Instagram at kicksoncanvas_artistry. So until then, I will catch you on the next one. Peace.